Good evening. My name is Brianna Henry, and today I will be informing you all on the rise of labor unions. Imagine being stuck in a workplace from dawn to dusk, being treated as a slave, and not even having a voice in your own work environment. This exact scenario happened over a century ago, which led to the rise of labor unions. Now, what exactly is a labor union? A labor union is an organization of workers dedicated to protecting members' interests and improving wages, hours, and working conditions for all. And although labor unions can be beneficial to today's society, the origin behind them has a very ugly history. It all dates back to the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution took place from 1760 to around 1840. That was like the prime years. Now, what exactly is the Industrial Revolution? In simpler terms, it's basically the transformation from when people stopped using their hands to make items and they leaned towards machinery and big factories. It was basically a time of innovation and conveniency. It all started in Britain and made its way to America and other parts of the world. Important creations that happened during the Industrial Revolution that are important to today's society are the Transcontinental Railroad, the Congen, and most importantly, electricity. The demand for workers for these factories were very high, and the factory owners usually led towards hiring the lower class because they knew they could pay them nothing. They also leaned towards hiring children because they were easier to manipulate and take advantage of. And another important group of people that also pursued the factory life were farmers, because they were only making enough money in agricultural life to sustain their farms and their families. They weren't really making a profit doing what they were doing. So the idea of having a set wage and getting to experience the city made them pursue the city life. Now that I gave you a little bit of background information on the Industrial Revolution, I will now talk to you about the conditions of the factories that made the workers take a stand and create unions, labor unions. First of all, these people were working 14 to 16-hour workdays, 6 days a week, with little to no break at all. They were only getting paid 10 cents a day, and women got paid 1/3 or even 1/2 of that pay, and children got paid even less. The fact that children were so small and could fit into small machinery made factory owners hire them because they can do the difficult jobs that adults couldn't do, and they can pay them an extremely amount of money, less money than they were paying the adults for doing the same exact job. A lot of children worked because they were so poor they needed to support their family as well. A lot of the children had physical deformities due to lack of exercise and sunlight. Their whole life was dedicated to working inside of these factories, which had no sunlight, and sometimes the machine was so bad that they would walk out covered in black smoke. A lot of these people put up with this because they knew that a lot of people were in desperate need of jobs, and they knew if they were to complain, they'd be fired on the spot because there would be somebody else ready to take their place. And that's exactly what these people were doing. If anyone complained, they would just fire them and be like, okay, well, you're complaining, she won't complain, so we're going to hire her. Another threat to these people were immigrants. A lot of people fled to America in order to seek jobs. The factory owners loved this because they knew that immigrants wouldn't complain, they wouldn't put up a stand, and they could pay them even less than they were paying the Americans because they didn't know any better. Eventually, workers got fed up and realized that what was happening wasn't right, so they stood together and created unions in order to have better work wages, better hours, and just a safer work environment. In the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, unions tended to be local to cities, towns, or states. It wasn't until after the Civil War when nation unions started to form. The first national labor union was the United Laborers. It began as a secret society in 1869 in Philadelphia. At first, it grew slowly during the hard years of the 1870s, but work militancy rose toward the end of the decade, especially after the railroad strike. The Night of Labor's membership rose with it. By 1886, there were over 700,000 members that participated in this labor union. Powderly, the labor union leader of the Knights of Labor committed to the organization of seeking an 8-hour workday, abolition of child labor, and equal pay for equal work. After the Knights of Labor, many more national labor unions formed, but they all pretty much have the same purpose. Now that I gave you a little bit of background information about labor unions, I'm going to talk about labor unions in today's society. They all basically have the same purpose, they're just a little bit different. So today they advocate for consistent schedules, no mandatory overtime, paid vacations, and time off for family and school events. Unions only work with people. They work as a democracy. They represent the employees, what improvements and protections they want in their contract. They promote fairness all around for the employees and the employers. They make sure the hiring process is unbiased so management can just hire and promote their friends. Well, that's all I have for you today. That's basically labor unions in a nutshell. I hope that you guys take advantage of joining a labor union when you step out into the real world and graduate, because after all, they fight for your rights, and the workers during the Industrial Revolution sacrificed their jobs in order to start these. Thank you for your time.